Well, hello there, everyone. How you doing? Today is Terrific Thursday, January 25th, year 2024. Wow, this month is flying by. Yeah, hopefully you're doing outstanding. I'm Mazske Finance, coming to you from the country of Panama. What I'm going to talk about today is my cash-on-cash return for my homes up in the northwest Indiana area. Yeah, up in Gary, Indiana. Most of them are in Gary. One's slightly outside of Gary. But anyway, and for those of you who watch my other videos, I did go to a doctor here in Panama, get my ear checked out. And what they told me was I have a minor ear infection. So I did get some antibiotic drops to put in the ear. So, and it's first time going to the doctor. I'll tell you real quickly how this went. It was very quick. I went to a private clinic. I don't have insurance here yet. So private clinic costs more than the public clinics. My price for the visit was $15.50. Okay, $15.50. In the US, my copays were like $30 or $40 when I went to the doctor. Anyway, when I went in, figured first time going there in the US, it would take 15-20 minutes to fill out all the multiple paperwork. There, I literally filled out a piece of paper this big, a quarter sheet of paper, a third sheet of paper, basic information, gave it to the receptionist, she put it in the computer, and within a minute or two, I was being called back to see the doctor. Doctor was very nice. She was an MD, and very nice, spoke both English and Spanish. Her English was probably about as good as my Spanish is, meaning she's not perfectly fluent. I'm not perfectly fluent in Spanish, but it's getting better by the day. And she diagnosed me with a minor ear infection in one side, not the other side. So I can tell I'm getting, this was just yesterday, so I can tell I'm starting to improve, but she said it would take several days until I really noticed being back to normal. All right, so that being said, I am Mazske Finance. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. And I'm going to talk to you about my Gary, Indiana homes cash-on-cash return. I'm going to do a couple things. I'm not going to give you the actual address of the home. I may or may not tell you what the rent is on each particular house, but I'll tell you what my cash-on-cash return is. That's my yield. Okay, it's your profit margin. It's how much money you're making percentage-wise. And I might tell you some other information on various ones, like the price I paid or something to that effect. Okay, these homes are being presented to you in no particular order. More or less, it's in the order I bought them in, but not exactly. Okay. Also, just so you know, an FYI, I did include for some of them, I do include my rehab expenses or my various smaller rehab expenses or large ones. But at the same time, I hold out my monthly capital expenditures, repairs, vacancies, expense. So technically, for some of them, my cash-on-cash return is better than what I'm going to say. For others, I think they're pretty accurate. Okay. I might also at the end throw in my Virginia house and my Illinois house. Just tell you what the cash-on-cash return is. Well, actually, I'm going to start off with my Virginia house. My cash-on-cash return there, according to my math, and I have double-checked it, triple-checked it, quadruple-checked it, is approximately 90%. Yes, approximately 90%. I have very little money into that home. I bought that home. It was the very first rental home I bought. Kept it for a couple years. And then I refinanced it, pulled money out, and however it worked out, I only have a little bit of money into that house. Very little at all, because I got a conventional 30-year fixed rate mortgage in the beginning, put about 20 grand down, and I got, I think, 20 grand-ish back, and so on and so on. So anyway, it's just ballparking at 90%, okay, because I have very little money in that house. Moving on to my Gary houses. The first one has a cash-on-cash return of 29.16%. It's pretty good. Pretty good. What's your expected cash-on-cash return when you buy? Is it 8%, 10%, 12%, 14%? But remember this, the higher a cash-on-cash return is, potentially, unless you just got a really killer deal, potentially is a higher risk area. Higher risk, higher reward. Okay? In the middle of talking about this, I'm going to tell you some warnings about investing in Gary. Okay, not right away, but in the middle of this. All right, moving on to the next house. That house has a even 22% cash on cash return. Moving on to the next house. That next house has a 17.27% cash on cash return. My next house is a 13.82% cash on cash return. So that one's a little bit worse than the others, isn't it? Okay, those first four houses were all turnkey properties. All right, so turnkey properties, not doing bad. I have put just a little bit of money into each one of those, but not a whole lot. I haven't done a full rehab on them. I did spend a little bit extra on one of them at one point from a tenant that damaged it. Okay, but moving on. My next house is 24.74% cash return. This is an interesting house because this is the one I've talked about it before. I paid cash for it. I bought it for $18,000. It had been rehabbed, but the rehab wasn't finished, and it needed about another roughly $5,000 to finish the rehab. Since it was rehabbed and rented, and I count that rehab as part of my buy price. That's how my CPA does it also. Because I bought it, rehab, spent the $5,000, then rented it. Okay. So, but anyway, since then, that was back in 2019 or 2020. I bought that. I've never done a rehab on that house. I might have done some minor repairs, whatever they are, but I've never done a rehab. Okay? So that one's paid off. Still getting almost a 25% cash return. It's pretty good. Remember, I got some ugly stuff coming up too, so don't think this is all butterflies and rainbows. Okay? I got some ugly houses coming up too. All right, moving on to the next one. This one cost me, or it's cash return, 13.65%. I do have a conventional 30-year mortgage on this. This house I did buy at the same time I bought the previous one and paid cash for. I bought it for like, let me see if I got it here, $40,000. Okay, I did count with that one $17,000 worth of rehab work that I had to do to it. Some of that work was done when I first bought it. Some of it was done a year or two after the fact. Okay. I forget what cost me so much on that house, but something did. All right, moving on. My next house is 18.84% return, cash on cash. That's getting better. Next one is check this one out, 38.97% cash on cash return. That one is rented under market value. But that one I bought it at a very cheap price of $39,250. I have literally put almost no money into it, just little minor stuff here and there. So my normal money I hold out covers that. Okay. That one though, the tenants, they may get pushed out later this year. And if they do, then we will rehab it, probably $10,000 to $15,000 worth of rehab. And the rent, which right now is my lowest rent, it's rented at $750. That's my lowest rent. That will go up to market value, and market value currently, plus or minus, is about $1,200, I think, for that house. I think it is on that house. Okay? Moving on. Next one is one that I bought it. I've done a little bit of work to it, $7,200 worth of work. I bought it for $43,000. So I got about $50,000 all in. My cash return is 40.48%. Okay, that one I'm getting rent on it now at $1,100. All right, moving on. My next one here is the ugly. This is the ugliest one of all. I think in some video recently I mentioned insurance and tax have gone up, and that one of my houses, the insurance, my escrow payment went up something like $180 a month. Okay, that's large. That house was already cash flowing poorly for me. It was like $210, $220 a month, which is not that good. I had bought that house very cheap, and I had to rehab that house. I put like $11,500 into it to rehab. It was a 4-bedroom house, 1 bathroom though. That's the downside. And then when the market was hot, I got it refinanced. When they did the appraisal, I didn't know what it would come in at. I was hoping it would come in at least at $100,000. It came in at 160, 170,000, thereabouts. I didn't refinance it at that amount. I refinanced it at I'm sorry, I don't have it right here. 90 some thousand. It was 90 some thousand. My mortgage on it, my interest rate is something like a 6.5%, I believe. It was while rates were rising. But anyway, my escrow just went up $180. I don't have down here my prior cash and cash return, but my current one, hold on to your horses, 1.67%. 1.67. That's my worst one. So I'm asking you, are you going to sell that house? What are you going to do with it? I'm going to hold on to it. That's my largest house, I think, up in that area. I'm going to hold on to it. That tenant just moved out. They had some issues. They were Section 8, but they just moved out. The rent was $12.50. That was Section 8 rent. So Section 8 in Gary pays less normally than market rent. And I was just told by my property manager today, it'll need some minor work done to it. I don't know a dollar amount on that work yet, because the lady had like 4 kids or something. And then by the time it's done and ready, it'll be springtime, because we're pushing February now. And my hope, I'm not positive on this, is that the rent will go slightly higher, maybe go to $1,300 a month or $1,350. So we'll see. All right, moving on. I bought this house off the MLS in Gary in late 2020. All right, 15.51% return. Next house I bought same time period. Found it about a week later. Bought it off the MLS late 2020. That one has a 34.31% return. Both those houses I have 30-year fixed rate conventional mortgage on them. All right, moving on. These next several houses are all seller financing. This next one has 36.52% cash return. I bought it for $50,000. I've only put small amounts of money into it. Okay. The rent is $900. Once again, whenever that tenant moves out, we're not going to kick them out. We're not going to push them out as long as they keep paying. But whenever they move out, we will rehab the house, make it much nicer inside, and that rent will go up. All right, next house is same deal. It's been rehabbed just a little bit, so money has been spent. $7,500 has been spent on it, but it's sitting at a 34.38% cash return. Because of that one being rehabbed slightly, that was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, I believe. The current rent is $950. Okay. Next house is, again, seller financing. It's 43.40%. That one I have not put any money into besides maybe like unclogging a sewer line or something small. I bought that house. Which one is that again? That's that one. I bought that house for $49,125. Rent is $950 currently. So again, whenever that tenant moves out and we rehab that house on the inside, that rent will go up to whatever it'll go up to. I don't know what it'll go up to. Okay? Moving on. This next house, my property manager says it's one of her favorite houses. She thinks it's in one of the better areas of Gary. And again, once we rent it, this house, she thinks the value of the house and the market rent will be much, much higher than it is now. We still have the same tenant in there that from when I bought it. I got seller financing on it. I bought the house for $41,750. My current rent is $900. All right. She thinks when this one is rehabbed on the inside, that rent will go up substantially, like $1,300, maybe even higher, based on the location. Okay. But it's already at a 52% return, which is pretty crazy. And I've had minimal repairs. I did just get rent for January, and that house needed a hot water heater. Okay. So that was like, whatever that one cost. I didn't look it up yet. All right, moving on. This next house has been a problem house for me. I've had tenants get evicted, move out, rehabbed it because they trashed it. Had a tenant move in. 3 months later, they stopped paying. They were going to get evicted, but they moved out on their own. Now the house is sitting empty. They're looking for a tenant. Section 8 in Gary can be really strict. Section 8, we had a Section 8 tenant 2 months ago. The lady really loved the house, wanted to move in. Section 8 came out, did an inspection, and they said due to the age of the house, they wanted my property manager to take paint samples from various spots in the house to send out and test for lead. Now, this is just my understanding of things, but if you have lead paint was pre-1978, I think. If you paint over top of it and it's not peeling, there's not a problem. My property manager, the husband that part of it, threw a little fit there because he said, slamming Gary Section 8 inspectors because he said it's nitpicking. The whole house has been painted. And he wants the expense, it'd be expensive, he said. It would be time consuming and expensive to test various samples and send it out. So anyway, but when I am getting rent, the cash return is 38.96%. Next house, I bought this one. This was my most recent buy up in Gary. I ended up paying cash for this house. So that means I put all the money in. I bought it off the MLS for $45,500. And I rehabbed it, and the rehab cost me a chunk of money for $19,238. Okay, so that was like revenue. That's $65,000 all in. Current rent is $1,250. Okay, but I paid all $65,000 out of pocket, so I have no 20% down payment. I paid it all. My cash return is 14.01%. 14.01%. Okay. Next house. This house was bought again from a turnkey provider. It was the very first house I bought. It's a very cute house. I've been inside of it. It's the only house up there I've been inside. It's a small house, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. It's not in Gary. It's outside of Gary. It cost me more. I think it's my highest priced house up in Gary. Yes, it is. It cost me $70,000. I have put money into it to rehab it since then. My rent, it's a Section 8 tenant, is below market rent. And it's the most they'll pay. Its rent is $950, but it's in my self-directed IRA. So that means I paid cash for it when I bought it. My taxes and my insurance have both gone up on it. My taxes, it's one of my more expensive ones because it's outside of Gary and the taxes are higher. Okay, so it's just more, so it cuts into your cash return. So anyway, it's a bad cash return. It currently is at 7.19%. There are people that will say 7% is okay. I like higher than that. But anyway, it's my self-directed IRA. I do plan to sell that house. I want to sell it on the MLS, not to an investor, but to a homeowner. It's a nice, cute house. It's not real big, but it's in a good neighborhood and it's a cute house. Okay? Moving on, next house is back in Gary. This is my last house. Is also in a self-directed IRA for the missus. And this one, rent is at $895 a month. And this one, cash return is 10.71%. Okay? Moving on, I forgot in the middle to mention what the downfall to investing in Gary is. Myself and Millennial Mike have discussed Gary before. There's a risk to investing in Gary. That risk is the quality, the tenant base is not as higher quality as perhaps other areas are. You have a higher risk of having to evict, having to push out. Various folks are getting folks in who seem to be qualified, and yet then they can't pay the rent or something happens. I have a mastermind group. We've all bought up in Gary, and I can tell you horror stories about others who bought a house, kicked the tenant out, had to rehab it, and it took 6, 8, 9 months to get rented again. I can tell you stories about another person bought 4 houses, and at one point I think all 4 had bad tenants in them. That's 100% of his portfolio. But my houses, I have 20 houses up there. I got my rent email in just yesterday. 5 houses I didn't get rent for. 5. That's 25% of my portfolio. Of that portfolio, I didn't get rent for. Out of those 5 houses, 3 of them are tenants who say they will be paying. One of them is in Haiti right now. Why do Americans go to Haiti? Usually it's a mission type thing. Okay, if that's the case, I don't know. But if that is the case, why didn't you pay your rent before you left? Come on now. But anyway, they're supposed to be getting back next week, and they said they will pay January rent and February rent next week. We'll see. The other 2 are both tenants who normally pay. My guess is because Christmas was in December, and maybe winter heating bills are going up, but they haven't paid yet. They both have been given their 10-day notice. All 3 have been given their 10-day notice. These other two also say they will be paying before the end of the month. So we shall see. The other two, one is my problem house. It's been empty since I think June or July. That's what I was telling you about. It's still empty. That's the one with they want to test for lead paint, but the whole house has been painted. Okay, so we got that one. And then we got another one that was a Section 8 tenant. Section 8 tenant lost their job. No, got a job, lost Section 8, lost their job, and now they couldn't get Section 8 back, and they just moved out, just turned the keys in this week, I think. So I was told there'll be some minor work being done to it. Then by the time it'll be springtime, and we'll try to rent it again. So there you go. There you go. I do have two other houses. I mentioned my Virginia house, 90% cash on cash return. Let me look at I got two other houses besides that one. I got one that's an Airbnb in Florida, and I got a house in Chicago. My house in Chicago, I might as well tell you this one. It's cash flowing at a 17.57% return. The rent is $1,650. I am cash flowing like $327. But the cash, like what did I say, 17%. But I'm getting my rent. I've got my rent every single month, unless there's a repair or something that needs to happen. So it's a Section 8 tenant there. So it's doing pretty good. Okay. My Airbnb in Florida, it's getting better. It's covering my expenses, I think, but it's not doing great. I do plan to sell the house at some point. I may buy property here in Panama. I'll tell you what I might do. If you're still sticking around, I have a goal. I might do this over time. I might buy a condo in the general area I'm in now. There are a lot of towers. There's lots of condos. I may buy a condo in this general area. I may try to buy a condo or an apartment down in Panama City. I may try to buy a house up in the Cherokee Volcan area. And I may try to buy land on the Azuaro Peninsula. The three homes I would rent on Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, and I would try to live in one at a time. I'd probably live in the Cherokee one in the winter months when the snowbirds come, and I'd rent the beach condos and the city condo to the snowbirds, hopefully, and jack up the rent. And then I flip-flops. Sorry about that little hiccup there. And I flip-flopped in during the outside of the winter months and live half the time in the beach condo and half the time in Panama City, and a third of the time beach condo, third of the time Panama City, third of the time up in the mountains, and then perhaps the land, maybe I build a house on it at some point, because my goal would be to buy land that's oceanfront property. So we shall see. That may or may not happen. I may not buy anything here in Panama. We shall see. I was telling my mastermind group earlier today, I may buy rentals in a different area of the United States also. I may possibly buy in Virginia because I got contacts there. I may go somewhere else. It's a big country. And I've always said you can buy anywhere. There are successful investors every neighborhood, everywhere. So you just got to find where you are comfortable investing. I think I'm topped out on my houses up in Gary. I'm not positive, but I think I am. I got 20-ish up there. You know, that might be enough. I might not sell them. I might sell a couple. But I'll hold on to a bunch of them because I like them. I got to find this in my heart for Gary. And we'll see what happens. Tomorrow is not guaranteed for any of us, right? Tomorrow is not guaranteed. So if my tomorrows keep coming, I'll keep making videos over time. And I'll keep you posted on how things go. So that being said, have a great day. Take care of yourself. Eat healthy food and your body will love you. Invest wisely and improve your standard of living. With that being said, Mazke's signing out.